Welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast, where we talk with the people behind the current events and breakthroughs in brain implants in an understandable way, helping bring together various fields involved in neuroprosthetics. Here is your host, Ladan Jiracek.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast. Today's guest is Omari Bouknight of RL Medical, which is Resonant Link Medical, and they look to have a new era of intelligent implants, get the power your next-gen device needs to be smaller, smarter, and longer lasting. So basically, wireless power for medical devices and neural implants as well. Omari, pleasure to have you on the show. Do you want to introduce yourself better than I just did?
You did a phenomenal job, Ladan. Thank you so much. It's great to be on the show. But I am Omari Bouknight, CEO of Resonant Link Medical. I've been working with this team for right around a year right now, and they've developed some really exciting technology that has had over time multiple different applications. But I think we found a really unique and sweet spot in the medical field, which is why we spun out about a year ago to focus solely on implantable medical devices. And we're seeing a lot of impact and a lot of traction, particularly in the neurotech space, which right now is really exploding.
Yeah, exciting. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about the technology. How does it work? How does current technology work too?
Yes, absolutely. So when you think about implantable devices, they all or most of them require some amount of energy for them to be able to function. Those that are trying to provide stimulation, for example, to treat pain or to treat conditions like epilepsy or to treat conditions like sleep apnea, they're providing some amount of stimulus to either prevent or accentuate something within the body. And so to be able to provide that stimulus, there's a certain amount of energy required. That energy can either be provided to the implantable device from the outside directly, or more commonly, the devices are paired with an implantable battery. The typical case that people will think about is a pacemaker that's placed in the pectoral area in terms of the device. And then there are leads, which metaphorically can be called wires, are snaked down into the heart, and that provides a stimulus to keep the heartbeat. So that same type of concept is being used in all sorts of parts of the body, and particularly in neuromodulation and neurotech, and require either direct energy or energy to be stored within the confines of a battery. The historical use case with batteries is that they would be based on something referred to as primary cellular chemistry, meaning that the batteries are not designed to be recharged. That means when you place the device, it will be used until the battery storage is depleted. And once the battery storage is depleted, you have to actually go in and replace the implant. That has created a higher interest and focus on looking at rechargeable solutions. We all use rechargeable batteries every day in our devices like our phones and our ear pods and all sorts of other devices. But historically, we've not really used them in medical devices. And the reason is because we've not had very effective ways to get power in and out of the body without causing too much heating. So what we really focus on in Resonant Link Medical is coming up with some very interesting technology, essentially a tech stack that allows for wireless power transfer to either recharge implantable devices or to provide direct energy without having overheating, and to do it in a really patient-friendly way that allows them to go about living their lives without having to worry about wires and a lot of other things that could be encumbrances for them. So this is very exciting because we're really starting to see different companies start to try to push the bounds on what they can do with implantable devices, making them more intelligent, but that requires more compute power, which means more battery power. And if you have to have devices that are quickly depleted because of that and constantly have to rechange them through resurgical operations, that's highly problematic for patients.
Yeah, it is a revenue source for a lot of surgeons and hospitals and everything like this. So they are a little bit hesitant to get rid of it because it's a nice source of money. Like, every 2 years or every few years, you have to call on the patient and do this invasive thing. But yeah, from anybody else in the system, it's really not pleasant and it's not a good thing. And another thing, having the percutaneous leads, you can lead to, contagion or inflammation and infection. And basically, this provides a pathway that infection can go down. So it's very, very unhealthy. And then, yeah, you're right. We are in Neural Implant Podcast. We're looking at more and more channels. Oh, we have 20 channels. No, we want 1,000. We want 10,000. We want 10 million. So that, of course, takes a lot of power. And so it's much easier to change an external thing. So It's some kind of band or something like this that would send the signal in, and then you would wear a battery on kind of some kind of strap, or what does the form look like in this case?
Yeah, the form factor that we're really talking about is something that we call multi-layer self-resonant structures. And the way this comes together is in coil-based technology. So to give an example that everyone will be familiar with, you can think about the coils that you would use, let's say, in a heater or in a range. And those coils are wrap coils and they generate heat. Essentially, they generate energy and in a very kind of a crude sort of way. So what we've developed is a way that we can create a multi-layer structure that generates power through coils that's being done in a very efficient way. So there's not much heat or energy loss within the coils themselves. And you're having a coil to coil transmission of that energy. So there's coil on the outside and there's a coil on the inside, an external coil and a receiving coil. And that transmission is done in a highly efficient manner. So there's very little heat loss in the coil themselves, which means the temperature increase in the air is not nearly as high as what we've seen traditionally. So there have been a couple of impediments to the adoption of wireless recharging previously. One is this temperature gauge. It's been highly problematic. The second one has been this idea of having to have perfect alignment. So you can imagine, because the coils are metaphorically speaking to each other, talking to each other in terms of transferring this energy, you want to have really good alignment between the two. And historically, you've not been able to have much misalignment. And if you did, you would drop energy. We've come up with a really unique way of being able to pass energy that allows for misalignment tolerance, even for micro movements. So patients can go about their daily activities without having to worry about, are they dropping energy? Are they really recharging? And those types of things. So we've really come up with a really unique tech stack that people are taking a look at for a lot of the neurotech applications, which, as you mentioned, require a lot more compute to really be able to facilitate their applications.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, so what are some of the numbers for this? How far does it have to be? What kind of misalignment tolerance is there? I guess the big thing is very fat people, right? If you have a thick layer of fat or something like this, then the angle of the surface might be different. And then also standing, sitting, everything might be changing as you're doing these movements. And then, of course, you might have a greater distance. So what's your guys' tolerances?
Yeah, no, these are great questions. And these are the types of things that we really like to dig into with the various applications, because we're really a model that's an enabler. So we're inside of the tech that's being deployed. And as you can imagine, there's a variety of applications. We're talking a lot about neurotech, but there's also applications in terms of sensors, diagnostics, as well as within a broad field of cardiology. And so as a result, being able to have a wide degree of depth of implantation is really critical. So we're able to see depths up to 6 centimeters right now for our applications, and there's some potential to be able to push that even much further. Because to your point, for a lot of these applications, you want to be able to go deeper into the body. And in particular, in certain applications, you want to be very focal. So you want to be able to focus specifically, site specific, and to be site specific, and to have a device that's smaller and less invasive. You want to be able to have something that can be really deep into the body. So we see depths up to 6 centimeters. We have some evidence that would suggest that we can go even further than that. And we're really excited to be able to explore that. And then from a misalignment perspective, normally we see plus or minus 2.5, 3 centimeters in either direction.
Oh, okay. And then angular misalignment, does it have to be planar to each other or can they be tilted?
Great question. So we also focus on being able to have some tilt to it as well. So we're looking at really three-dimensional alignment, whether it's depth, whether it's alignment from the center of the device, or if it's looking at tilt.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. And so you guys are basically a platform technology. You guys want to come on the podcast and tell the neural implant world, like, hey guys, use our, I guess, powering. If you're developing a product, then you come to us and we'll take care of you for that. You are device agnostic. You don't really care necessarily what device you're working with, but you just want to power those devices, right?
Yeah, we're completely device agnostic. What we're really trying to do is support a movement within the fields, which I think is trying to become much more intelligent in terms of what they're delivering to the patient. And so what we're really trying to do is first let people know that we exist, because I think what happens is that people really have these visions and concepts that they want to pursue. And the power requirements are one of the last things that they start to evaluate. So by letting people know that we exist, we oftentimes have great conversations. We're able to educate a little bit more on what's available in terms of the universe of wireless power transfer. And that then kicks off more and more engagement. So essentially, we're trying to be a supportive voice for the field.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. And so what kind of, I guess, limitations, other size, maybe size limitations, or what kind of implant would this be best for? I guess what's the size on the receiver and transceiver side? And then what are the power requirements too, or power limitations?
Yeah, so just to give you some example in terms of the power requirements, and that's the nice thing about the technology stack is that it's highly scalable. So we can do everything from powering devices that require something in milliwatts. Let's say we have one of our applications that's called Eternity, and it's powering up to 500 milliwatts, to all the way up to one of our platforms, which is really doing what you talked about before, looking to get rid of percutaneous leads, and that can provide power up to 15 watts. So it's a really wide range and it's highly scalable. Obviously, if you're looking at the smaller implants, the tiny implants, then you're looking more towards what I was referring to before in terms of the milliwatts. But for some of the larger applications, we can go up to 15 watts and still be able to comfortably provide the wireless power transfer needs.
Wow, that's incredible. That's about the rates of a cell phone power. I wonder if you could use your cell phone even to charge it in a pinch or charge up your phone or something like that. And that's pretty incredible. That's the heat discharge is okay with that, or like that doesn't create any heat?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some level of heat generation, but the issue historically has been that the temperature rise. So, to give you an example, regulatory bodies would want to see something that stays under a 2C temperature rise, so 2 Celsius temperature rise. And we routinely stay way below that. We're often orders of magnitude away from the thermal limits. And that becomes really exciting for people that we work with, because they end up reducing their discharge rate because of the thermal limits that they're up against. Whereas we don't really face that challenge nearly as much because we're highly focused on the thermals through our platform. And as a result, we're really able to push a lot more energy over a farther distance without having the concerns that are generated from thermals. And that's really why implantable power is such a challenging issue or topic frequently. It's not really a question of can you push more power? It's really can you push more power safely? And that's really what our technology is focused on doing.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, to the extent that you can, I'm assuming you guys have worked with some people you've already hooked up or hooked on to some existing devices. Can you talk about some of them, or what is the product span?
Yeah, absolutely. So the product span, and we've talked about brain computer interface. I know it's a topic that you cover quite a bit. And if you think of all of the different areas that BCI is looking to target, whether it's epilepsy or movement disorders or ALS, we're quite active in all of those different applications. BCI is definitely a space and area that is taking advantage of and leveraging the technology. We're also looking at some of the kind of traditional neuromodulation spaces that people are looking to really advance. So we're starting to see in spinal cord stimulation, for example, the desire to unleash closed loop algorithms. And we're seeing companies want to work with us to be able to take care of their power and in many cases their data transfer needs as well. So spinal cord stimulation is definitely an area. And neuromodulation more broadly, people are starting to look at more and more targets for neuromodulation. So we've started to see people try to deliver stimulus in a more targeted way. If you think about peripheral nerve stimulation, for example, that's an area that we've worked in. If you think about obstructive sleep apnea, that's also a newer target for neuromodulation that we've been active in. And we're even seeing newer targets such as asthma. So I think that we are only really at the beginning of understanding the applications for neuromodulation, and certainly just at the very early stages for brain-computer interface. And it's been very exciting to be able to work on those. And then outside of neuro, we've seen applications in smart orthopedics. We've seen it in left ventricular assist devices. We've seen it in heart sensors targeting heart failure. We've even seen it now start to enter into some of the more traditional spaces, such as implantable cardioverter defibrillators. We've seen it also in other neural applications that are just at the forefront. So really, we think we're just at the surface. Anything that requires energy is underneath the skin is probably something that we've had something to do with.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's a broad spectrum. So, are these basically companies that are looking to commercialize some kind of product? They're going through the FDA, or are you also working with some researchers or something like this, some more one-off things? Or I guess what exactly is your target market?
Yeah, it's a mixture, but I would say primarily and predominantly we partner with what we or original equipment manufacturers or OEMs. So these are developers of these innovative technologies. We've been working with companies that are very large to very small. We do find ourselves working a lot in the startup universe just because I think that they're also very eagerly looking to see what are ways that they can be very innovative and in some cases disruptive. And so they look at our platform as a key enabler to some of those activities. So we partner very well with those companies as well as some of the larger players that are out there. And essentially what we love to come in and do is take a look at what the roadmap is and help them explore what the footprint of their device could be, what the capability of their device could be, and really optimize that for their patient target. And then we find ourselves really partnering with them for the long haul through the early prototype development, through the early concept generation, through the early first in human studies, into the pivotal trials, and then on into the commercial environment.
Oh, interesting. So you're actually helping them with the design. As you said, that people think of it as an afterthought, that the power requirements and delivery, but it seems like they might need to change some of the things that the stimulator does or form factor or something like this in order to be able to make it all work and shouldn't be a last thought.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't be, but quite honestly, it's understandable why it happens. For those of us who've worked in the startup universe, we're often working on milestones. And those milestones first start with trying to drive to a proof of concept that your concept, your idea actually has merit and has value. And then you consider or think about all the things that go around it. I'll call it the package. That concept comes in later on. And power is often thought of as the package. Ideally, it's thought up front because I think that now with this type of technology it can actually unlock capability. So we love it when we have the opportunity to partner up front. But the reality is because of the way we think about milestones, it's often not the case. Another area that we often play in is that a device actually has been deployed. It's been commercialized. Maybe they're operating off a primary cell battery, and maybe their technology just isn't lasting as long as they want, or they've gotten feedback that their footprint should be smaller. And so those are opportunities where we're able to come in and talk about a second generation or third generation, the value of moving to either direct energy transfer or to rechargeable batteries in terms of making the footprint smaller and making the device last longer. And those are opportunities that we're always happy to engage in as well.
Yeah, exciting. So what's the history of the company? How long have you guys been doing this?
Yeah, no, great question. So the origin story really goes back to 2013. Aaron Stein, who is our co-founder and CTO, was really working in Dartmouth and working on some of the really initial principles around a new way to drive wireless power and really came up with this concept of multi-layer self-resonant structures. And on the basis of that, started the company in 2017. And in 2017, you can think about the variety of verticals where this type of technology could be applied: electrical vehicles, autonomous vehicles, consumer electronics, et cetera. And along the way, the company really realized that a key market product fit or market technology fit was in the implantable medical space and generated a lot of excitement early on, especially from 2019 through 2025 in the medical space. And as that rapidly iterated, took some of the base technology and has now turned that into technology products that can be easily semi-customized by application. And based on what we were seeing in the market, decided to stand up a standalone company focused on medical really at the beginning of last year, 2025.
And that's about when you came on.
That's exactly when I came on board. Exactly. So my background has really been working in implantable medical devices roundabout since 2002, 2003, and really having a passion for innovation in the space and how we can really evolve patient impact. And one of the areas that I've really been fortunate to work on is in left ventricular assist devices, which really is transformational for patients who are generally in need of a heart transplant. So these are patients in advanced heart failure in need of a heart transplant, but there's not enough organs available to really be able to treat and support the population, which led to the advent of the left ventricular assist device, which does exactly what it seems to do. It seems to be called. It assists the left ventricle, but we know those are very power hungry devices, and that's where this percutaneous lead comes in, where patients have a lead tunneled through the abdomen, and that connects to a controller as well as batteries, and that's what powers their system. So amazing technology in terms of how it transforms and keeps patients alive and helps them to restore quality of life. But one of the areas of quality of life you always get feedback on is that percutaneous lead, which is also a nidus for infection. And so I've always really been interested in exploring ways that we might be able to get rid of it with wireless power transfer. And that, in addition to having a burgeoning excitement around neurotech, was really what brought me to Resonant Link Medical.
Yeah, exciting. That's cool. And I'm glad that you guys were able to do that. And I wish you lots of success with being able to get this as many products as possible. I've seen some percutaneous leads on some OEM, like you said, devices. And I'm just like, oh man, it seems so wrong. I don't know. Come on. We're living in the 21st century. Let's act like it. I guess there is some times where a percutaneous might be better, easier, faster, cheaper, something like this, but I don't know. I think the wireless definitely does seem to make a lot more sense. So what is exciting you? What's coming up in the future, the next 5 years or something like this? Are there larger power transfers available, smaller footprints, or what do you think might be in store?
Yeah, you know what I'm really excited about over the next couple of years is seeing devices with this technology getting through clinical trials and out to commercial. So we have had some first in human work, which is really exciting, but we're excited to be able to talk more about that and to be able to see the patient impact at an even greater level. I'm also really excited about the exploration into biomarkers where people are looking to really have their devices trigger off of those biomarkers and introduce closed loop algorithms such that we can see more individualized and personalized care. So I think there's something for us to say about that and looking forward to that story unfolding. And then lastly, I'm just really excited about the amalgamation of data. And so one of the things that we find ourselves working on quite a bit is data transfer in addition to the wireless charging aspects of things. So there's just a lot going on. I always tell people I'm a bit of a medical device geek. So I love being able to work across a portfolio of diversified applications and ultimately do what we're all here for, which is to advance patient care.
Yeah, the data transfer. Yeah, once you do that, you basically have everything taken care of. And I know that, for example, on you can actually transfer data on like hard lines or like the power lines or something like this. So that actually you have a carrier wave, right? And so are you able to do something like that, or is it just like a separate module and it's just okay? So it's also wireless, and that's why we're working on that. Or would you be able to have the power wave be a carrier wave somehow?
Yes, exactly. So our control scheme goes over the power communication. And so that power communication and control scheme allows for there to be data transfer. For a lot of these really high data rate applications, there's additional data transfer that needs to be required. And so we also work on some supplemental areas for that.
Okay. Cool. Omari, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention?
Oh, this was just a lot of fun. Really appreciate having the opportunity to come on. And really, our goal is to be a voice for the field and to let people know that there are new ways to enable recharging and direct energy transfer, and that it's something that should be explored because I think there's a lot of benefit that can be accrued to the patient.
Agreed. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ladan. Good to see you.
Hope you enjoyed the show and were able to learn something new, bringing together different fields in novel ways. Until next time on the Neural Implant Podcast.